Meredith, how are you?
Hey, Chef Tim. Good. How are you?
Excellent.
Well, welcome to the kitchen and welcome all of you at home. We have a very exciting day planned.
100%.
Because it's an exciting year.
Exciting time of year.
Absolutely. 150th Kentucky Derby is right around the corner, and there's no better time than right now to start planning your party.
Get ready to celebrate with some great culinary delights, Meredith.
Absolutely, because we love to party.
Absolutely.
As you can see, at least one of us is a little fancy and festive. Chef?
Well, you know, it's hard to break this.
I love it. I love the hat, but you know, we could have done a little extra.
Yeah,
a little extra
I
effort.
fell short on that.
That's okay, as long as we don't
It's a debacle.
fall. Right, as long as we don't fall short on the food. So we have some awesome party planning recipes for you today. So when you think about the Kentucky Derby, what types of food do you think of?
Well, mint julep, number one.
Absolutely.
The pecan pie, number two. And then, how about you?
So I love pimiento cheese, hot browns, and of course fried chicken. So we do not have a recipe for fried chicken.
Well, you know Redner's makes the best fried chicken.
Because we don't need one, because Redner's makes the absolute best fried chicken. So make sure you place your orders because it is going to be quite busy.
Absolutely.
So we are going to get started with the pimiento cheese because that is absolutely a staple. It is one of the favorite appetizers and it's so easy to make. So Chef Tim.
It's a good way to kick it off too.
Absolutely. So we are going to get started with a little crushed garlic.
There's nothing better than fresh garlic.
Absolutely. So we have our 2 garlic cloves. Next, we're going to move into roasted red pepper that has been nicely chopped. We're leaving a little bit of the liquid in there because that is going to help emulsify all of the ingredients once we get it blended. You could do this in a food processor or a high-powered blender. Next, we have our sharp cheddar cheese and Monterey Jack cheese. So I like to shred these fresh myself. Of course, you could use pre-shredded stuff, but I think it's always a little bit better when you take the extra effort and do a little shredding first. Next, Chef Tim is going to add the 4 ounces of cream cheese. Half cup of mayonnaise. And then 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. If you prefer it to be a little spicy, you could certainly add more cayenne pepper. If it's too spicy for you, you could take it down a notch. But we like it spicy. All right, Chef Tim, we are ready to blend. All right, Chef Tim, so we are ready to move on to our next party food. Keep in mind, the Kentucky Derby is way more than just fancy hats and horses.
True.
Everything always involves food, right?
Always.
So from morning to night, even though it is the greatest 2 minutes of sports and it seems very short, you have all day to celebrate and party.
Have a good time, eat great food, and drink great drinks.
Drink your mint julep, right?
Yes.
So we're moving on to pigs in a blanket. Although it doesn't sound very fancy, this recipe takes it to a whole new level. We, of course, are going to start with our puff pastry and then make a special glaze. So, Chef Tim, I'm going to send you back to the stove and let's get that glaze made.
Awesome.
All right, so as you can see, we are starting with some melted butter in a saucepan. And then we're going to simply add 1 tablespoon of honey and 1.5 tablespoons of light brown sugar. All Chef is going to do is then simply whisk that together, let it be nice and blended, and then it will be removed from the heat. right, that looks pretty perfect. It can now be removed from the heat, and we're gonna whisk in the Dijon mustard. So you have to love some of these ingredients. I mean, the flavors alone just get so, they blend and they speak so well together.
Absolutely. And Dijon is one of my favorite mustards.
So keep in mind, once you make this glaze, it does need to cool. So just be aware that you may want to do some other things while this glaze is cooling down. Chef, you might want to have a drink.
That sounds good.
All right, Chef, now that the glaze has already cooled, you could start preparing your puff pastry. So take your 12-inch square, cut it in half, and then you are going to make 6 triangles.
To make it really simple, I use a pizza cutter. That way it flows very nicely. It's nice when you have this puff pastry, which is thawed out. It's a perfect square. So now we have these nice triangles. Cut in half, cut in thirds, then cut those in half.
Now, Chef, what happens if you accidentally forget to thaw the puff pastry like we may have done?
Well, real simple trick is wrap it in a napkin in the microwave on high for 15 seconds, and it comes out perfect.
So it's no big tragedy.
It's no big deal at all.
That's right. All right, so we have our puff pastry cut in the triangles, and next we are going to brush on this tasty glaze.
Meredith, when you said kicking it up a notch, this most definitely is making this. This is going to make the dish. This is an extra step, which is well worth it.
And again, just like so many of the recipes that we always encourage people to give a try, this is another one that you could do so many steps ahead of time, so that right before your friends and family come over, that is a great time for you to toss them in the oven. You could also have extras on hand, because it's always hard planning on the exact serving amounts for people. And I'm a huge fan of hot food and fresh food. So you don't always want to make everything right at the beginning of the night, but you also don't want to spend so much time in the kitchen while everybody else is having a good time. So just being able to go over to the refrigerator, grab them out, and then pop them back in an already heated oven makes party planning and maintaining really easy.
Can you make these the day before?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, Chef, so what's your next step?
We're going to roll them now.
If you have kiddos in the house, this is a great thing for them to help with. It's super easy. All you're doing is putting your piece of hot dog on your pastry puff triangle and giving it a roll and getting it on your prepared baking sheet. We sprayed a little bit of canola oil just so that it doesn't stick once they bake. All right, Chef, they look absolutely perfect. So what is the next step?
The next step is we're going to egg wash them, but rather than using a pastry brush, I'm a little lazy to a degree, but not being lazy, this actually is a better method of it. So all I do is I just take it and I dip it right in.
Ah.
And then
I love it. So I've always used the brush.
Now, the brush is kind of ideal, but
here I feel you really get the bottom, whereas when you have the brush, you're kind of just brushing the top and maybe a little bit of the sides. But this looks so evenly coated.
But you really want to kind of shake it off really good so you don't have any excess. And the other thing is, when you do this, it's a little bit cleaner. Like you don't have the eggs
dripping all over
the place. Yeah.
I like it. That's a great tip. All right, Chef. Those pigs in a blanket look absolutely beautiful. They have a nice egg wash over top, so let's season them and get them in the oven.
They are absolutely gorgeous, and we're going to hit it with a little black peppercorns.
So the oven is preheated to 375.
Perfect.
Once we have them seasoned, we'll put them in for roughly 30 minutes, and they'll be ready for the party.
30 minutes may sound like a long time, but it's the perfect time because puff pastry needs that extra time in the oven to get absolutely perfect.
Don't want to forget the flaky sea salt. It's going to add some great texture and of course the flavor that's going to merge right with that awesome great glaze wrapped up inside.
100%.
All right, Chef Tim, we are moving right along here.
Yes, we are.
But we still have a lot more to do for this big Kentucky Derby party.
That's right. This one I think is going to be, I don't know, they're all good so far, so.
They are all amazing so far, but this one I am particularly excited about. Now, I will say this one has a few more steps, so this is not quite as simple. Well, it's simple. There's just a few more steps. So again, you need to think about it in terms of planning, but this is not something that can be left off your menu.
No.
This is the Kentucky Hot Brown, which is an open-faced turkey sandwich with cheese sauce and bacon and charred tomatoes.
Ooh.
And again, these are not steps that you can skip.
No.
Sure, you may not want to heat up your broiler to char these tomatoes, but after you do it one time, you realize that it's absolutely a necessary step.
Yep, it's worth it. Yep.
Yes. So let's get started with the Kentucky Hot Browns. So the first step is heading over to the stove and heating up the milk in a saucepan. Chef Tim right now is mixing together room temperature butter and a little bit of flour.
We're making a little blonde roux.
Once Chef has the butter and the flour prepared, it will get added to the hot milk, whisked together, and we'll wait for that cheese sauce to get nice and thick to top our open-faced turkey sandwiches. Chef, are there any necessary steps to make sure that this cream sauce is not lumpy? Any tips that you could share with us?
Yes, you want to make sure that your roux, the flour and butter, is smooth, and that is smooth so that it's not dry and clumpy, because then that's what will happen to your sauce.
Is it better to melt the butter first or not necessarily?
I believe so, yeah. It's better to melt it and mix it together. And you could cook the roux a little bit, give it a little bit of a nutty flavor, but this is coming out perfect, as you can see. I mean, look how smooth it is. It's really good.
So once the sauce is nice and thickened, you could remove it from the heat. That usually takes a few minutes. And then you could put both cheeses in.
Oh, man.
And you can see how perfectly and creamy and smooth that's getting.
Look
You're
at
just gonna
that.
keep on whisking.
And what's really important is that the thickness of this sauce should be a little bit thicker for this sandwich.
Right, because you don't want it just running off the turkey and the bacon.
No, this is incredible.
Next, you can add in our spices. So we have a little nutmeg, salt, pepper, and then of course my favorite is the hot sauce. I'm not giving you any direction when it comes to hot sauce, Chef, so feel free to make it as spicy as you like.
Thank you.
Did I have to give you that permission?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Freshly grated pepper, and then we have our salt. And this is first step done. So I said there was a lot of steps, but I said they were pretty easy.
Beautiful. It's a really nice sauce.
And once we have that cheese nice, creamy, and smooth, we could hit that back over on the stove and continue to make our Kentucky Hot Browns. All right, Chef, our next step is getting these charred tomatoes ready. So you can place some sliced tomatoes on a baking sheet. You're just gonna do a little drizzle with olive oil and then of course season with salt and pepper. We'll pop these in under the broiler for about 6 minutes. We're gonna place these in the broiler for about 2 minutes on each side, just until they're nice, bubbly, and charred.
The next step is, and it's a simple, easy step, is you just want to butter both sides of the bread, and then we're going to pop it in the oven to toast it up. So anyway, after playing checkers with my bread here, the toasted bread, we are going to assemble our hot brown, Kentucky hot brown. We're going to start with our turkey. Our broiled tomato.
They look fabulous. They are nice and charred and busted open, and they did only take a few minutes. They're nicely seasoned with salt and pepper. Now comes the good part, right?
Here comes the good part, our sauce.
The cream cheese sauce that we have been waiting for. Nice and thick. Another thing you can do if you don't want such big sandwiches, if you're going for more of an appetizer look, you can always get like a French baguette and cut those into slices and then essentially make mini Kentucky hot browns. So you're gonna go through all the same steps, but the bread will just be a little bit smaller so they're more bite-sized. And then we're gonna top with some cheese. Well, Chef, they look great. So they're heading
Fantastic.
back under the broiler for only a few minutes until that cheese gets nice and melted. And then we'll add the finishing touches.